Welcome to EyeOpener, powered by Siemens. And now, your host, Gugan Sanger.
You touched on this whole, like you said, I think it comes back to this whole concept of learning and gaining more knowledge. So when it comes to your assets, and these can be different assets, different types, etc. From our perspective of coming in and, I guess, assisting with the predictive maintenance project, they gain all this knowledge into their assets, and they've got all this data, and essentially they start to understand it more, when before it was, hey, we just want to reduce our downtime, we just want to improve efficiency. But all of these other elements of knowledge and understanding what the issue is something that comes into the whole process too.
Because customers will be using that data in the right way. Like there'll be some that will have loads of data there, but they don't know how to structure it, how to make the most effective use of it, and we can enable that. We can enable them to really be more concise in what they'll feed in for like a specific asset. But also, a lot of the problems that customers will experience will be for the first time. They won't really understand like what's going on, why is this failing the way it is failing. But with the use of predictive maintenance, it helps to just make them understand that better. It allows them to really see what is going wrong, and also how to do that process. And I think that journey that it takes them on from going from reactive or preventative to more predictive is really that change in mindset, change in that kind of that change management, I should say.
So that takes me to my next question around, what are the key steps which need to be taken in order to achieve a successful PdM project?
Well, the first one's going to tie into the actual initiative itself, and what's the long-term goal that you want to achieve with a PdM program. Because I think, coming back to some of the points earlier, it's not just 12 months, 24 months. You need to think of it as a long-term vision. Does it tie into other areas in the organization where improvement is going to be desired? So the first step is for customers to do some form of asset criticality assessment. Know where is your problem, where does that problem lie specifically. And I think from that perspective as well, if they know where that asset is, if they're able to quantify that issue, looking at the connectivity point of view, because I think with predictive maintenance, and any predictive maintenance kind of worth its value will require good data to be put into the application. So in terms of beginning that journey, I think there's steps that need to be taken from a connectivity point of view to ensure they are well connected assets, that they are able to get some data into the application. If let's say data isn't there, it's still not actually the end of the world. We can, companies can help support providing that hardware to build that end-to-end solution, but that really needs to be figured out in those first steps of what is available, what is the current infrastructure you do have, and are you able to really automate it? Because doing some manual labor in terms of pushing that data, it's not going to be feasible long term. It's not going to allow you to scale. One of the things in terms of that early stage as well is looking at who are going to be some of the key characters. Like who is going to drive this initiative? Is it being driven from the top down, or is it like driven from like a plant by plant basis? If it's driven from the top down, it's going to stick. It's going to be able to grow out, rather than trying to go from the down, like bottom up. Makes it a lot slower process. So in terms of those initial steps, those will be things that will need to be considered. Where do you want to be in 3 years time? Where do you want to be in 5 years time with predictive maintenance? How do you see that growing in your organization? That's where you need to begin with, in terms of covering those issues, covering those topics, and that will allow you to really determine where you're going to begin. And I think that's one of the biggest things we have with customers, is where are they going to begin with this solution. like a lighthouse facility. So in case, those who are listening don't know, a lighthouse facility is somewhere where it's more technologically advanced than other sites. It's got probably more data, it's got a good culture, and they're more open to adopting solutions. And generally organizations will look to run like kind of new projects through a lighthouse facility, see how it develops, and then will look to expand it within the organization, because lighthouse facilities are generally seen as places for best practice, and they're really good in terms of actually working like with the people, being able to understand the problems that are there. They generally have a good knowledge and understanding of this. So once you've done that, it then goes into that number crunching, because like you said, people want to know what is the ROI we're going to be able to get, or what are we going to potentially be able to achieve with this solution, and how is that solution going to look from end to end. So we've got the data from here, how we're going to be able to effectively and efficiently push it from A to B, A being their shop floor, B being like that, maybe that cloud platform or that predictive maintenance platform. So that's that initial scope that they would look to do. And once they've kind of identified, okay, we know what assets we've got, we know what how we're going to push that data, who's going to be involved, like from a project resources point of view, and that will really build that kind of proposal, as you would, that not only can be presented to the business, but this is how you will be able to successfully implement a predictive maintenance project.
Going back to your point around good data, Ryan, how do you define what good data is?
So good data will be able to show any change in that machine's health, that machine's state, and I think good data will cover a variety of potential failures. So one of the things that will be done in that pre-sales process is really identifying, once the asset's identified, what failures are there, and that will be able to map good data. If you've got a list of failure modes and then looking at what data is present, for example, if you're having an issue with bearings, okay, but you have vibration, that's going to be good data, because to be able to pick up any like bearing damage, as an example, you would need vibration data to be able to do so. So good data would be aggregated. It wouldn't be like raw frequency data. It's not going to be like every millisecond. You could aggregate it to maybe 5-10 minute intervals, where you would see like a minimum, maximum kind of rate of change within that data. And that will the data itself will just be very aggregated to show what's that machine's current health. Is it going to show significant signs of degradation? And data can be in all forms. It can be machine data, it can be kind of process data as well. So if you have something like a machine's like cycle time as well can be something that can be valuable, because if the cycle time takes too long, it may show there could be like a blockage, or there's an issue with the process that is actually happening. So there's a wide variety of data that can be used, and I think it's one of the things that a good organization will look to qualify and look to understand that data available and what can be kind of utilized, and maximizing that existing infrastructure. So there are some things that can be done, but I think it's a bit of a case by case basis, depending on the machine, the industry, the process itself. Like we know as an organization, for example, for a gearbox or a motor, what kind of measures would be good to be able to give full coverage. But there may be some assets that you need to probably look at, say, process data, some contextual information that can really help to feed into it.
So Ryan, from your experience, what's made a successful PdM project?
So I think you could break that down into 5 components. So being able to scope the project properly, making sure that there's value and benefit, and you've identified the objectives and constraints for the customer. Then you go into the design phase, and you're looking at the asset selection, identifying relevant data, potential failure modes to kind of go with that. Looking at the kind of deploy, so actually making sure that you're onboarding the right data, the right assets into the Sentai platform, being able to ensure that the connectivity from the shop floor to your application it is stable, is quite seamless. And then like the operate phase is where the customer actually get quite a lot of support in terms of case reviews, information that's being raised from the platform, making sure that they're able to understand it, and being able to configure the application to their needs. So really, just doing those small minor tweaks, and then refine. So you actually, the previous 4 steps, you're actually going to be completely refining that over and over, and think of that as a continuous loop. So you're looking at how can you further integrate with their workflows, any integrations like with a maintenance management system. What does like that ROI look like in terms of scaling as well? You'll look to really define that in the refine phase, and then that will kind of loop back to the design. Then you go through that consistently, and with customers, the best ones will be able to, once you get to that refine phase and you go back to the design, they'll be taking over that design. They'll know how to do that asset selection. They'll have that knowledge, experience, and skill set to manage it independently.
Yeah. I agree with your point of this whole continuous cycle. I think that's what it is. When it comes to a predictive maintenance project, it is a continuous cycle, because this is, a lot of our customers have these long-term goals. So they're forecasted over the next couple of years. And once you mentioned about the refine stage, again, you're going to go back because the process, and each and every time it's going to be work in progress, and you're developing what the issues are, and most importantly, understanding the reason why you've got these issues in the first place. Yeah,
I think speaking to probably one of our longest term customers in terms of that process, they have been able to really adopt those stages themselves. So like, yes, initially they ran through it with us, but now they take ownership of that. And when it comes to that, speaking about ROI and the cost of projects, they've actually eliminated a lot of those costs in projects, because they take ownership of, choosing those assets, make sure that the data is right, onboarding those assets into the application. Where they take kind of complete ownership of it, they've been able to scale globally, over 10,000 assets, multiple sites, and now they just pay for a license, and all you can eat license. So where they've been able to show really great maturity and take ownership and be independent with that, like, yes, we gave them those initial skills, and they've kind of taken it and managed it themselves. So it's when an organisation gets on board, it's so powerful.
So, Ryan, on our previous episode, Nathaniel Ford asked a question for our next guest on the show. And that question is focused around, given the rate of technology, how do you see your job role evolving?
Well, I think with technology, it's allowed us to be able to communicate with people on the other side of the world, to actually be able to deliver projects without ever seeing someone. I think with technology, you can speak about AI coming in, and there's so much information that's still accessible to people, like on the internet. You can kind of pull up something like ChatGPT, and you can look for things such as predictive maintenance. But I still think, in terms of my role, people would want to buy from people, and they always have, and I still think that would look to continue. And actually, in terms of understanding the solution, it's still going to be within my role. I think it will evolve in terms of how AI, machine learning will evolve. So my job is still going to be to keep pace with it. But in terms of actually communicating that to organisations, to people, I still think that's going to be like an essential part of it. So maybe the technology itself will change, and how I actually go about communicating that to customers might change. But I still think the biggest part of my job is to be able to build trust, to be able to manage relationships, to be able to help them understand that the benefits and value that a solution can bring. And I don't see that changing immediately within maybe the next 5 years, maybe 10, 15. Who knows? I think probably, if you spoke to Nat on what it was like maybe 20, 30 years ago, I think he might, have seen it evolve quite significantly. But I think, I'm quite fortunate to be in that generation where we've been exposed to the development of technology. So actually keeping up with it, I think, is much more easier for my generation than maybe it's, say, for older generations. Not that they haven't done a good job. I know plenty who have been able to do amazing things with it. So I think it won't change too much in the immediate term. But I think with things such as COVID happening, it's allowed us to be able to do stuff more remotely. But the importance of us getting in face to face with people is still going to be paramount. Like, we'll still need to go and see people, visit sites and whatnot. So the core elements of my job, I think, will still remain. And then I think for a question, right? Do I have to do a question for the next person?
So for our next guest on the show, Ryan, if you could ask a question, what would it be?
So I did touch on it just then. Chat GBT. How dangerous do they feel Chat GBT can be to job security and job roles? And it'd be interesting for them to say, what job roles do they think specifically will suffer from this emerging technology?
Very interesting question, and I think it's been the talk recently, hasn't it? So it has.
I think there's been so much. It depends if you're on TikTok. You can look on the internet, and there's so much, and they kind of say, what's the worst thing that could happen from like these AI like bots, and they're saying the worst case scenarios, because it's not really regulated at the moment. If if that AI kind of starts to develop, if it's able to manipulate people without people kind of realizing, that's when it can become dangerous. But I know there is a debate in itself on the regulation of.
So thank you so much, Ryan, for joining me on today's episode. I think it's been great to dig into the whole topic of what makes a good PdM project versus a bad PdM project, and really appreciate your insights into this topic.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to always speak about and to create some awareness for people who are looking to potentially adopt this and are looking to begin that journey themselves.
Big thank you to our audience for tuning in on today's episode. Please stay tuned for the next one in the series. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and see you soon.
To find out more, search Sensei Predictive Maintenance.